Hello and welcome to the Extreme Time for Business. We are in Brașov at FIAR, the 19th edition, and have the pleasure to speak with Mr. Professor Karel van HULLE. He's a university professor at the University of Leuven and Goethe from Frankfurt, and also member in different working committees of EIOPA and of the European Commission. Mr. van HULLE, welcome to Brașov and in Romania. Thank you for your presence here. You have participated today in the Insurance Brokers Conference and talked a lot about the IDD, the new directive for the insurance intermediation. What do you think is the most important maybe element that this new directive is bringing to the market, and what can be the consequences or the main changes for a market in the stage of development as the Romanian one?
Well, thank you very much, and I'm very pleased to be here in Brașov. The Insurance Distribution Directive is following the footsteps of the Insurance Mediation Directive, which goes back to 2003. And the Insurance Mediation Directive was already introducing a big change in Europe by requiring all insurance intermediaries to be registered. And they could only be registered if they satisfied a number of conditions. On those conditions, very importantly, was of course professional qualifications. Now the IDD, which was proposed much later, of course, and was recently adopted, this IDD is continuing in this trend of professionalization of the profession of intermediaries. It deals with issues such as the distribution channels. The world has changed since the IMD was developed. More and more people buy their insurance directly from the insurance companies, so we want to make sure that the same protection that consumers get when they buy through the channel of intermediaries, that they get it also when they buy directly from the insurance company. We also wanted to address in the Insurance Distribution Directive issues such as conflicts of interest. Conflicts of interest have become more important recently, particularly in the area of investment products. Many people have been buying investment products with an insurance wrapper, so they didn't know exactly, am I buying a pure financial product or am I buying an insurance product? So we need to have some transparency about a product, but also about the conditions attached to that. Because many of these products that were sold on the market included all kinds of costs, was not very transparent, and where people were, for one reason or another, wanted to hop out of the contract, they found out that the money had completely disappeared. So there was a need to deal with this issue to make sure that there is transparency, that also when there is some form of remuneration, that people know what remuneration is being paid to the intermediary. Other issues that we deal with in the Insurance Distribution Directive concern the relationship between supervisors. It's very important that supervisors in host and home countries work together. Classical case would be a Romanian broker that offers his services in another country. For instance, in France, a Romanian has a summer home in France and wants to buy home insurance there. If a Romanian broker is doing that, then he needs to be registered also in France. That needs to be organized so that we know who is actually the supervisor in that type of relationship. So that is important. Now, what is important for the Romanian market? I think the reforms that we are going through are important for all markets. For Romania, it may help the market to become even more professional than it is today, because the brokers will be required to follow continuous education programs. They will also, through transparency rules, be obliged to show to their clients the service that they are offering and why they are charging for the service they are offering. And as I said at the conference this morning, if an insurance broker offers a good service, he should not be afraid, or she should not be afraid of disclosing the fee or the commission that is collected on that service, because the clients are more than willing to pay for good service.
As far as I understand, under the scope of IDD is entering now also the online distribution. Is it right? Because this was a segment less regulated, let's say, until now.
Yes, it's indeed very important. We can expect the future generations, especially in retail, but also in business, that online sales will increase tremendously in the future. And we want to avoid that people buying online a service would not get the same advice that they would get if they buy on a face-to-face contact. So that is important. It's not easy to regulate it, but all these comparative platforms and so on, they are also subject of regulation under this IDD.
This is important, I think. I would like to also ask you now that there are already some months from the moment that the Solvency II regime is in place, if the European authorities have already some conclusions regarding the way it works, what changes maybe are still needed, or how is the fine-tuning, let's say, at the national level?
Well, Solvency II, to which I'm very much attached because I'm the father of Solvency II. Solvency II is a very complex system. It has become complex because people wanted many details to be regulated. I wanted a principle-based approach, but then people were asking me, what does the principle mean? And then you end up in detailed regulation. So that is the case. I regret that, but unfortunately we will have to work with that at least from the beginning. And I hope, and that's the hope that I express also in relation with EIOPA, is that supervisors will concentrate on the substance and not on the form. Not on the nitty-gritty, but on the basic principles of Solvency II. And the basic principle of Solvency II is actually good risk management. If an insurance company knows its risks, manages these risks well, then it will, by definition, have the necessary capital to operate. Now, you're asking me, do we already have first conclusions? The answer is no. The only way we can know something is when we look at the results of the 2016 stress test, which EIOPA is now organizing. And I think the results of that stress test will show that the market today, and that should not come as a surprise, lives in very extreme circumstances. The insurance business model is being tested by economic conditions that are, by all means, not normal. The low interest rate environment has consequences on the markets. Insurers are sitting on a book of old contracts with high guarantees, which they cannot make up with investment profits, because investments today, you can hardly make any money on your investments. So that is a problem, how to deal with the old contracts. And there are some transitional measures in Solvency II that help the transition from the old to the new regime. But going forward, will life insurance still be a business opportunity? I read recently that Allianz has decided to stop selling traditional life contracts in Germany. Allianz is the biggest insurer in Europe. So that shows that the circumstances we're living under today are abnormal, and I think the stress test will show that. The problem is that some people in the insurance industry will say, it's because of Solvency II. It's not because of Solvency II, but Solvency II is like a thermometer. It shows that there is high fever in the market, and if we hadn't Solvency II, insurers would continue selling these contracts, not knowing that they are sick. And that is, I think, a big advantage of Solvency II. One of the fears that I have is that because of these market circumstances, that people will already now ask for changes in Solvency II. And you hear them, the Commission has announced, at the latest by 2018, we will want to propose changes. I would say, based on my experience as a regulator, give this regime the chance of evolving. You will need at least 5 years before a reform like this is actually integrated and captured by the market. Yes, and that is true for supervisors. They have to learn to work with the new regime. but it is equally true for insurance companies. So we cannot expect people to change their mindset, to change their culture from one day to another. That takes time. So let's give this project the time it deserves. It took us about 15 years to develop. So let's not change it then overnight before it has shown whether it works or does not work.
Of course. What you were saying earlier brings me an idea. It seems that it is starting the era of the risk managers reigning, let's say so. Do you think that in the European landscape, and particularly in the Central and Eastern Europe, there are enough well-trained risk managers, or are they treated, considered with the importance that they should have in the companies?
I think it's a very good question. And my answer is, of course, no. If you look at university curricula today, where can you learn and study risk management? I think more and more universities are starting to develop this part of the business in business schools, in economics faculties, and that's what we're trying to do too. The problem with insurance is that insurance is a business, but it's not looked at in university curricula as a business. People look at insurance from an actuarial point of view, and actuaries are only interested in calculating, in modeling, in the mathematical side of things. And then you have the lawyers who only study insurance contracts. But there is no place where people actually learn how to manage insurance risks, how to deal with them, how to recognize them, how to evaluate those. And that is definitely a huge challenge to come. It's not only true in the Central and Eastern European countries, but it's equally true in the old European countries. It is true, I must say, that my experience is that since we started with Solvency II, the development, all the quantitative impact studies that have been carried out in preparation of Solvency II, that the level of knowledge on risk management in Europe overall has increased tremendously. And if I look at the debates that we have today between insurance companies and their supervisors, this is a dream. I mean, it has never been at such a professional level as it is today. Is it perfect? Definitely not. Can we improve? Definitely yes. But we are on the way. And it is only when we have good risk management, when we really understand the linkage between risk and capital, that the insurance industry will be capable of delivering the things that society needs. Society for the coming years needs protection against natural catastrophes. For Romania, a very important issue, by the way. Protection against sickness, long-term care products, good health care, ways and means to become old and still be, happy, so that older people are not poor people, but are happy people. So there's a lot of challenges to come where insurance can offer solutions. But they will only be able to do so if they know their risks, if they don't sell their products under the price. And it's equally so for the traditional MTPL products. If you look at some of the markets in Europe, the way the MTPL market works is not good. And that also has to change. And Solvency II will help companies to change that.
Speaking about solutions and thinking to the future, I know you have a very interesting and lucrative, let's say so, initiative, the Karel Club. What is it and how does it work?
Well, one of my dreams was, after retiring from the European Commission, how can I continue to have a dialogue between academics, supervisors, and the insurance industry? And the Goethe Business School at the university in Frankfurt, where I'm now an honorary professor, they asked me to set up a club. It's called the Karel's Club. And I bring together twice a year high-level people from the industry, insurance industry, from academia, and from the supervisory community, both at national level and from EIOPA. And we discuss issues that are relevant for the insurance industry. Because contrary to the banking sector, which has all these sort of frameworks where they discuss all these issues and they have the money to do that. The insurance world does not have that. And my experience with the club, which I have been running since 3 years, is that there's a lot of interest in this because people feel they learn something. They learn something from talking to each other in an informal atmosphere at a high level about issues they really want to talk about, but they don't find the place where to do so. Among the issues, for instance, we discussed insurance distribution, the changes in the distribution area. We discussed issues about new forms of risks and how to take care of new forms of risk. We discuss next time, which will be in November, when we have our next meeting, we'll be discussing crisis management and what happens with an insurer when he becomes insolvent. So resolution and recovery, a market which is expanding in Europe because a number of insurers will not make it through Solvency II. Not because of their fault, but because of market circumstances. And the law has not followed that development. Now, it's a lot of interesting topics to discuss, and my forum, my club, offers the possibility to do that.
Then I can only wish you success with this. Hope you will have the lucky moment this autumn and find some solutions, at least some good ideas. And I also hope to see you again in Romania as soon as possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure, and I hope next time I come, it won't rain.
Okay, we will try
Is that
to
a
arrange
promise?
that.
Thank you very much.